Thank you for that. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the
to the
flag
flag
To the flag,
United
of the
States
United
of
States of
America,
United
America,
States of America,
and to
and
the
to the
republic
republic
which
for which
it
it
stands,
stands,
and
for which
one
nation,
nation,
one
under
nation,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and
liberty and
justice
justice
for
for
all.
all. All right, I know that that's always a little awkward, but it's important that we do that. So thank you, Justin. So item B is our roll call. Ms. Jones, are you able to call the roll?
If you can hear me, I can call roll.
Please go ahead. Thank you very much.
Okay. Councilmember Bell,
Scott's still muted.
yep. Okay, now, Councilmember Bell,
Here.
good. Councilmember Cousins,
Here.
Councilmember Fisher,
Yes.
Councilmember Knight,
Here.
okay. Councilmember Michelle,
Present.
Councilmember Smith,
Here.
Student Rep Covert, which I do not see, mark absent. Student Rep Malik,
She's muted also.
I know she's here, so I'll just move on then.
No,
And
no,
Mayor Keough. Yep, should we let her answer?
I think she did. I am also here.
Okay, very good.
So just to remind everybody that I've turned off allowing people the ability to unmute themselves. So if you mute yourself, then I have to unmute you.
Justin, if you could put the agenda back up, I'd appreciate it, please. Thank you. Okay, we're down to item C, which is approval of the meeting minutes from our regular city council meeting of May 28th, 2019,
Which was a typo.
which is, yeah, it should be the 27th, right?
I just saw that actually.
No problem.
I move to approve those.
Okay, okay, Julie, motion by Julie. Jim Smith has his hand up.
I'll second.
Second by Jim Smith. Thank you both. Julie, I'll let you go first since you made the motion. Any corrections on the minutes?
I didn't see anything. I wasn't at the meeting, so I guess I can't be too critical.
Okay. Jim, any comments, please?
Yes, on page 7 of the minutes, under the council comments, Donna Fisher's name is spelled incorrectly.
Okay, yep, you're right. Good catch. Anything else, Jim?
No, thank you.
Okay, other members of council? Okay. Seeing none, hold on one second. Let me just look at one other page. Okay. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. The minutes are approved. We have no prearranged participation this evening, so we'll move down to item E, which is approval of the agenda. Jim Smith has his hand up.
Yes, I move the approval of the agenda with a couple additions. I'd like to see Stephen Miller's email add under the second public hearing, and Jamie Griffin's email to be added under communications, communications as number 2.
Okay. So Stephen Miller's under F2 and Jamie's under H2.
Yes.
Okay, motion by Smith. Is there a second?
Sean,
let me see if I can get a second, Michelle. Hold on a second. Is there a
Second.
councilman?
I'll second.
Okay, I was gonna say, if we don't have an agenda, we're basically done, folks. Thank you, Scott. Okay, so second, okay, discussion. Michelle, you had a comment?
I'm sorry, there's another document to be added to your agenda, and I apologize. I sent it out late, just before your meeting, and it's minor changes to the emergency ordinance that you're going to discuss tonight. It was emailed to all of you. I think Justin's able to pull it up if you need to, but it would get added to
Item L3.
item L3, please.
Okay, let me just ask, how many council members have received that or know that they've received that?
I have not.
I have.
I have.
I just pulled it up right now, but I haven't read it, so.
Okay, all right, we'll take some extra time then. So, Jim and Scott, on approval of the agenda, if we can also recognize an additional piece of information as if it was placed on the table in front of us, we'll make sure that Justin pulls it up when we get to that item.
Okay.
Works for me.
Okay. Any further discussion on the approval of the agenda? Thank you. All those in favor of approving the agenda as modified, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Those opposed? Okay, thank you. We are now moving down to two public hearings that we have this evening. Item F1 is a public hearing regarding the 2020-2021 fiscal year millage rate and budget. As is our normal approach for public hearings, we'll open the public hearing. We'll recognize any audience members that would like to speak on the topic or make any comments. We'll close the public hearing, and then council will take action if someone is ready to make a motion following the public hearing. So the first public hearing is on the fiscal year 2020-2021 millage rate and budget. I would like to open the public hearing at 6:08, please. And then I'm looking over here under participants. If you've dialed in by phone, you can raise your hand by doing *9. If not, I'm not seeing any comments. So while I'm waiting for hands to go up, I'm going to just briefly mention that the proposed millage rate is proposed to stay the same. We have a total of 15.3062 mills proposed. That's the same as last fiscal year. The general fund millage is proposed to stay the same at 10.8987. The streets millage is proposed to stay the same at 4.4075. Again, the sum total is 15.3062 mills. I still don't see any hands up. Well, I see Paul Cousins has his hand up. Do you want to make a comment now or as part of the your council discussion?
Just to make sure that that I understand that the public does, it says action on each public hearing will be taken immediately following the close of the hearing, but in fact, then down below that says it will be taken on June 22nd. That is the correct process, on June 22nd. Am I correct about that?
So Paul, we adopt the millage rate at this meeting. We adopt the budget on June 22nd.
All right. Thank you.
No, thanks for asking the question.
Because they're linked together under item 1, it says millage rate and budget.
Correct.
The public hearing is for both.
Yeah, the public hearing is for both, but the consideration item, if we get to it, is for a resolution that sets the millage rate and the administration fee that goes with it.
Thank you.
And we just do that because we need those for the tax bill. That's got to get to the printer.
Thank you.
No, good question, Paul. Thank you. Okay, so I'm not seeing any hands. Justin, if I miss somebody, I'm gonna let me know, but I'm gonna close the public hearing at 6:10. Oh, wait, I see a comment. I believe that's Stephen Miller.
Yes, hello.
Hi, Stephen.
So yeah, this is in regards to the sewer rate ordinance. I don't know if that's open for discussion right now.
So that would be our next one. If you can hold on just 2 minutes, we'll get to that one and you can place your comment under that public hearing. We'll have a separate public hearing for the sewer ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
No, you're very welcome. Thanks for attending the meeting. Justin, do you see anybody else with a hand over there? Okay, I don't. All right, so I'm officially closing the public hearing. Then at 6:11. Council, is there a member of council that would like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion
Okay, go ahead, Jim.
to approve the resolution appearing on pages 17 and 18 of the packet, setting the millage rate and administration fee.
Okay, motion by Smith,
I'll support.
support by, who was that, Scott?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, motion by Smith, second by Councilmember Bell. Discussion. I see Zach, I think waving something.
Yeah, I was trying to put your little hand up on the thing that's sitting somewhere on the phone there. So I have up here the thing that we discussed previously of possible ways to reduce projects. And two of them that I think we ought to consider. Currently, it was showing sidewalk repairs at 40,000. I think it'd be possible for us to reduce that by 20,000. That still gets a fair amount of sidewalk work done. The other was landscaping around stairs to Alpine. That was at 20,000. So that's, if you do the math, they're roughly a 0.08 millage reduction for both of those. It's not a lot, but it's recognition that folks may be concerned. And if the information from the state comes back better than what we expected, the 8% versus the 25% were budgeted, then we could restore funding for both of those. So that reducing both of those would reduce the millage rate by 0.16. Rough math. And I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Okay, comments by other council members? Smith and Bell, I leave it up to you whether you want to accept that as a friendly amendment.
I would like to keep it as is.
Okay.
Great.
Other council members have comments on the millage rate?
Paul has his hand up.
Okay, I didn't see him. Thank you for helping. Paul, the floor is yours, sir.
Thanks for recognizing. I agree with Zach. In fact, I would even cut it more than that. I would cut it $0.25 total over, including those two items there. I think that's a significant thing that we can do to help the citizens, as well as recognize that we have a pretty good healthy balance there above our 15%. And I didn't propose any of those tonight after talking to Marie this afternoon, because in the previous conversations I thought it would be like blowing in the wind. It's not going to happen. So I just felt that it was important, though, that we could do that. I would vote against this millage rate at what it's been proposed, though, right now. I want to let you know the reason why.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have a hand, but I'd like to make a comment, Julie.
All right, Julie, thanks. Please.
Yes, I will make the same comment I've made for year after year after year. Being a former property tax collector, I'm always opposed to the 1% administrative fee. I feel our taxpayers already pay enough through just our millages and that. So, but I will vote for it. But I just want to make it known that I generally do oppose the admin fee. So, thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and just Julie, jump in when there's a pause, because if I don't see the star, if you're not using the *9 or the hand, I'll need your help with that. So thank you.
I know, and I had trouble getting on, so I had to dial in rather than pull up the Zoom.
No, it's no problem at all. Just appreciate you speaking up.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see other comments. I just want to say that I think that, all in all, this budget has a lot in it again. It's impressive, the work that our staff do to put it together. It's very well organized. And so kudos and thank you go out to them. I'm going to ask Carol to call the vote. So motion by Smith, second by Bell to approve the resolution on page 17 and 18.
Okay, Councilmember Cousins,
No.
Councilmember Knight,
Yes.
Councilmember Bell.
Yes.
I didn't hear that.
He said
Yes.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Fisher,
Yes.
Councilmember Michelle,
No.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
and Mayor Keo.
Yes. Okay, motion carries 5-2. Thank you. We have a millage rate and Marie can get the tax bills out on time. Public hearing, or item F2 tonight is a public hearing on the 2020 and 2021 water and sewer rates, the proposed 2020, 2021 water and sewer rates. So I'd like, similar to the last topic, I'd like to open the public hearing at 6:17 p.m. And Stephen, if you are there, Justin, maybe you could unmic Stephen. Now is the appropriate time to make comments on the proposed water and sewer rates.
Yes, hello, this is Stephen Miller. So I did send out an email previously, but I did want to just voice my opinion in by voice as well. So the main point is that the sewer rate increase is 10%. That's a quite large increase as compared to pretty much any other expense that anyone would have. Obviously, this will be a tough year for a lot of people, so having that large of an increase seems excessive. I looked through the budget. I didn't see any expenses that seemed sort of out of the ordinary or one-time things that would justify such a large increase. And so the feedback I would like to give is that I think something around a 3 to 4% increase, more like the water rates, seems like a more reasonable number is a more reasonable number, and that's all my input.
Gotcha. Stephen, can you tell me your address? Maybe you said it and I just didn't catch it.
Sorry, no, I did not. It's 6991 Wilson Drive.
Thank you very much. Just Stephen, just so you're aware, when we took on the sewer wastewater treatment plant improvements that we started and finished last year, we knew that in order to make the bond payments associated with that $5.5 million in improvements, that the rates were likely going to go up 7% a year for the next few years until we were able to watch the revenue catch up to the bond payments. So just as a basis of comparison for you, the 7 is something that's been talked about for the last couple years, and even before we approved the rates as a predicted amount. The reason it's shown as 10 right now, and for anybody else that's listening, is every year we expect with the new houses and the increased businesses that have come in, we expect the water use to go up. And if we had more water users, you spread that cost out over more users. But it's a very interesting phenomena. Even with the additional people that are added to the system, we haven't seen the increase in usage. So the 10% was a number that was thrown out to try and compensate for the fact that people are using less water. The expenses are still there on the fund. So I'm sorry for giving a long explanation, but just wanted to make sure you knew that.
Thank you. No, I do appreciate that extra explanation. That certainly is not clear from at least the documents that I reviewed.
Gotcha. Thank you. Are there other hands up, Justin? I've put my participants down. Let me move that up.
Not seeing any as of yet.
Okay, I'm not seeing any either. Okay, so we're at 6:20. I'm going to close the public hearing at 6:20 and look for a hand for a motion relative to the adoption of the 2020-21 water and sewer rates. Jim,
I'll make that motion.
oh, Julie, you're
Julie.
making a motion? That's okay.
Yeah.
All right, Julie's
Yeah.
making a motion to adopt what's in the packet.
Yes.
Okay, Jim Smith, your hand is up.
Yes, I'll second it.
Okay, so motion by Knight, second by Smith. Apologize if I talked over anybody. Now council discussion on what's in the packet. Courtney, did I miss anything in explaining the proposed rates? Maybe you could just go over the rates a little bit for me.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, we had structured the bond so that we kind of eased into it a little bit over the course of a couple of years. And so next year, 2021 is the first year that we feel the full effect of that $5.5 million bond issue. So that just kind of came on at a time when we have more uncertainty in that fund, because we've also seen a little bit less tap fees than we budgeted. Some of the home construction in Grandview slowed. So, and we're expecting some larger tap fees next year. So I think it will be very interesting when we get the results of the May and June bill to kind of see, and again, outdoor watering will play a factor in that. If it stays dry in June and we see more outdoor watering. I don't know where the number's at right now, Dan, as far as how much we're getting up to on a daily basis, but I haven't heard that it's
Around 500, 600,000 right now.
okay. Well, that's good. So that's increasing some, so that will help. But the problem is there's just a lot of fixed cost in those funds that don't necessarily go down when we're processing less water, and that's what makes it challenging.
Thank you, Courtney. Jim Smith has his hand raised, and then we'll go to Zach.
That was my second. So
Okay. Thank you. Zach, you're up, please.
All right. Just to clarify that we operate the water and sewer as enterprise funds, which mean the folks who use it pay for it, that they're not subsidized from the general fund and people who aren't necessarily using it, correct?
Right. So it's a user-based system. So it's either through tap fees or through user charges, ready to serve and commodity charges that those funds pay for themselves. And we did talk about the fact that we do have the $200,000 that we got from the local community stabilization fund. And we're holding that separate in a separate cash account for right now, just in case that could be used if we do end up spending the reserve that we're budgeted to spend this year, which would be pretty significant. We could use that as a sort of temporary cushion until the fund has some time to recover. Hopefully that's not necessary, but it is there, and we're going to keep that separated for now, just in case. But yes,
Okay.
the goal is to have it operate on its own, and it has since I've been.
And so these increases are what's necessary for it to operate on its own without pulling money in from somewhere else, whatever it may be.
Right.
As we discussed, it's partly an issue because we're getting fewer tap fees, which has been previously used for paying for a lot of the maintenance and upkeep. For those, and the reason why it's separate water and sewer is because most of the project was on the sewer side.
The whole project, yeah.
The whole project.
Yeah.
That's a lot percentage there. For those who have a hose or something similar, a hose bid for outdoor sprinkling, do they have the option to get a separate meter so they're just paying the water?
They do.
Okay.
Most do, yeah. I mean, a lot of people have used that option, I should say. We have a lot of second meters.
All right, and so those folks, they don't pay the sewer, just the water plus the extra tap fee.
Right.
All right, thank you.
It's actually just a meter fee. It's like $350, not a full tap.
Thank you, Zach, and thank you, Courtney. Are there other council member comments?
Paul again, John.
Hi, Paul.
I want to thank Mr. Miller for making his comments, just because in all the budget hearings I've sat in over the many years I've been on this council, I don't think that we've ever had a comment on sewer and water rates more than maybe once or twice, or any other thing on millage rates. So he's a rare bird, and I appreciate his comments on that. The second comment I'll make is that I'm sure when I fill my pool, since we have to drain it and put a new liner in, that I'll balance up everything that anybody's used, about a 27,000 gallon pool. So
We
I'll help us
appreciate
out
that.
and see there, okay?
Thank you, Paul. We put the hole in your pool just so you'd have to, just so you'd have to drain it.
Well, look, it's no fun. It's no fun to have increased costs on either one of these funds, but what we've learned over time is that we have to keep up with the minor increases that occur on both funds. And in this case, the sewer fund has the payments due to the improvements. So I too thank Mr. Miller for writing in and then joining us to make some comments. But I think Zach hit the nail on the head that these are enterprise funds, and as users, we have a responsibility to make sure that we're covering those fixed costs. So I don't see any other hands up. Scott, did you want to say anything? Everybody okay? Donna, you're good?
I'm good, thanks.
Good.
Okay. All right. I'm going to ask Ms. Jones to call the vote to approve the adoption of the 2020-2021 water and sewer rate ordinance. I believe motion by Julie Knight, second by Jim Smith, please.
Yes. Knight,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Cousins,
Yes?
Keo.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. That concludes the public hearing portion of the agenda. We'll move on to a little further down on page 2, item G, which is non-arranged participation. This is the first of 2 opportunities on the agenda for anyone who's in the audience or participating tonight to make a comment. If you desire to speak this evening, could you please state your name and address? Is there anyone that would like to speak this evening? Justin, I'm not seeing any hands, but I don't want to make sure I don't miss something. Do you see any, sir?
I am not. Do you want me to try unmuting folks to see if they have anything?
Yeah, why don't you just do that to make sure we cover anybody that would have called in.
All right. All right, I've hit ask to unmute on those who
May want
have
to speak.
who have been muted.
Okay.
And I'm still not seeing anything. Ugh, I'm not seeing anything.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Okay. I'm going to move on. We'll show no public comments then at the first non-arranged participation. There are now 2 communications in our packet. One is the upcoming meeting list, and the second is the email from Jamie Griffin regarding her comments at the last meeting. Jim Smith has his hand up. Jim?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, we had also received an email I meant to also include in the communications that Courtney had distributed to us from Joe Boytson regarding the 2020 class procession through town.
Okay. I think we can have that shown and recorded here if that's good. That's a good point, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments related to the communications?
Paul, again, I didn't receive Jamie's letter. Was that sent out on a separate email by itself? And,
Yeah, it was forwarded from, was it forwarded from Justin or from Courtney? One of the 2.
Justin earlier today.
all right, thank you. I'll check.
Yeah, Paul, she had, I don't have it in front of me verbatim, but she wanted to make sure that Carol's transcription of her message is different than Jamie wanted it posted in the minutes, essentially is the situation. So if we recognize Jamie's under communications, it's forever part of the meeting without reflecting a difference in how Carol took down the notes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, no further comments on the communications. I'm going to move along to report I-1 from our Public Services Superintendent. Dan, how are you?
Good. How's everybody today?
Hi, Dan.
Then,
Good, thank you.
In your packet, I gave you a copy of my written report, and then I have quite a few updates on projects, ongoing projects, and I'd like to start with the ongoing projects first.
Okay.
We had a meeting last week up on Central Street with Restoration. I've met with the construction sponsors, representative from them, OHM, and then actually Kurt stood in for me because I had another meeting going on. I had some problems, and so did the residents with the restoration up there. So I think we got that all figured out, and they're supposed to come back and finish up the restoration on Central Street before June 26th. They'll give us notification, and I can let Courtney know so we can get something out to all the residents on Central Street. Does anybody have any questions on Central Street?
No.
No, thanks for following up, Dan.
I'm going to move on to Forest Street. They came in last week and they did restoration up there. I talked to Chris Donikowski this morning. I haven't had a chance to walk through up there, but just from driving by it, it looks like they did a pretty good job. I think they had a weed whip out there. They knocked down a bunch of the high grass. So I still have to follow up with Chris, or both of us do a walkthrough to finish that up. Is there any questions on Forest Street?
Dan, they actually did a nice job on the other pedestrian crossing areas also. The one over by Walkabout Creek on Dan Hoy
Yes.
looks real good. Actually, both of them on Dan Hoy look well, are good to me as well.
Thank you for reminding me of that. I forgot about that with my list of updates for you guys.
No problem.
The next one I have is, excuse me, Grand and Hudson. They're done with the sewer main work that they were doing from Inverness down to Kensington on Grand. That has been a maintenance nightmare for us ever since I can remember, and I've been here a few years. That has all been done, new manholes. They've tied in all the sewer leads. Now the last few days, last week and today and tomorrow, they're working on putting the new sewer leads in that we went and televised and identified problems so we could get them out from underneath our total rebuild of this road that we're putting in on Hudson and also Grand. So I'm hoping tomorrow they're going to be done with sewer leads. And then after that, they're going to start on stormwater and the service lines that we got to repair. Next week, on the 10th, we're going to do a water shutdown at Ann Arbor and Hudson to put a new valve in. We handed out handouts today to all the residents that are going to be affected by the water shutoff. And then the 11th, we're going to do another shutdown. That's just going to be on Grand Street to cut and cap an old hydrant and put a new hydrant in at the proper distance that it needs to be in between the blocks there. We handed out handouts today for that, for the shut off, the water being shut off. Both of those water shutoffs for the hydrant and the valves will start at 9 a.m. and we're hoping that they can get it done relatively quick. I also wanted to let everybody know that we're done flushing hydrants for the year. We're running a little later than usual, but we did get that accomplished late last week. Does anybody have any questions on my updates on the project?
I don't, Dan. I'm
Paul,
not,
again,
Go ahead.
Dan, when you come by Forest Street, if you let me know so I can just understand what they did for my beehive there and how they want the water to go into it. I'm not sure, but
Okay, I can do that.
thank you, buddy.
No, you're welcome. Well, if there's not any questions on the ongoing projects we have, is there any questions on my written report?
Is the Westridge lift station back operating?
Yes. When we had the power outage, I can't remember, it was last week.
2 weeks ago during the meeting.
Right.
Right, correct.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Seems like years ago.
I know, doesn't it?
We had a problem at the wastewater treatment plant, and also we had a problem at Westridge Lift Station. What we figured out at the wastewater treatment plant is there's 3 phases that comes in to power the wastewater treatment plant. And a number of years ago, we had the same problem. I went out back and I noticed that one of the legs was down. It's like a fuse on the pole. So we called DTE and got them to come out and put that fuse back in, and then everything went back to normal. Out at Westridge, DTE thought that one of the lines that is buried underneath the river had burned, and they weren't able to use it, which wasn't the case. But anyway, somehow when they put the power back on, the voltage went so high, it bypassed our equipment, our safety equipment, and burned up 2 of the motor starters on each one of the motors at the lift station. I ended up pulling an all-nighter with Eric Hartman out there. We had a problem. I couldn't get Metro Sewer to come in. They were busy at 3 hospitals trying to help them out with their lift stations. So I came in with Eric, and I got another company that headed our way. But the Kennedys that does our lift station maintenance for us was able to talk me and Eric through bypassing the motor starter on the one pump so we could get it going so it wouldn't flood any basements. So I got to call off the Vector truck that was coming in. What was it? Friday, they came in, Kennedy's came in and put 2 new motor starters in for us. So everything is operating perfectly at the Westridge lift station and also the wastewater treatment plant.
Thanks, Dan.
Yep.
I see Jim Smith has his hand up, Dan. Let me just see what he has a question.
Yeah, I was just curious, Dan, about the sinkhole by Hotel Hickman.
Oh, we ended up getting Metro to come in for that, and they did a Vector inspection. And what we found was a vault with no pipes going in, no pipes coming out. So, and it wasn't connected to any of the sewers there. We have a push camera that we bought a few weeks ago, and we push cameraed all the sewer leads there. There was nothing connected to it. So we ended up filling it in with pea stone and putting sand on top of it, is what the sinkhole was.
Was that in the parking lot there, or?
It's right in front of where their freezer, where they store all their meat.
Okay.
So it started out as like a little 6-inch hole, but you could see down, down below that it was a little bit bigger. And then it was probably, I don't know, 2 foot by maybe 3 feet deep at the most. So we ended up Vectoring all of that material out, cutting the asphalt back, and it was some kind of masonry 8-inch block tank that had holes all the way around it. But I'm not really sure what it was used for. I remember a number of years ago, and I'm talking 30 years ago, we connected the Hickmans to the sewer that runs out to Broad Street there. So I'm not really sure what that was all about.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good question, Jim. Julie, Paul, let's see, who can't I see here? Any further questions for Dan?
All set.
Okay, thank
I have
you.
a quick question.
Okay,
That's nothing to do with the report. Do we have any idea why the street lights went out today?
We lost power today in the city. Pardon me?
It was a tree that fell on a line and took it down. And then a transformer blew at Mill Creek Middle School, and so it was kind of an ordeal.
Okay.
I assume everybody still is back having power now though, right, Courtney?
Yeah, I think as of like 12:30 or so.
Okay. Okay, good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Dan, I think we're good. I'm gonna move on to our Community Development Manager report. Michelle, how are you?
I'm fine. How is council this evening?
Good?
Yeah, thank you.
It'll be so nice when we're all together again.
We are together.
Well, in person. Okay, so you've got my report in front of you. Before I go into any updates, do you have any questions for me? Okay, so first update. There will be a small street tree planting this month. We had initially postponed the spring street tree planting to the fall due to the COVID situation, but our contractor asked if we could do a small street tree planting in June, because all of his contracts, whether they're municipal or private, have done the same thing, and he does not have room in his yard for everybody. So he's asking everyone to do a small tree planting, and so that's what we're doing. It's mostly in the downtown. It's along Broad Street, pedestrian walkway, as well as the portion of Broad Street that runs between the Encore Theater and Dancer's Edge. Those existing trees have either died or they're in the process of dying. And so Kurt and his crew over the last week have been taking them out. The ones on the pedestrian walkway, the contractor will take out. They're a little bit larger, and then he will be planting new ones. They will be Eastern red buds, which is what he had recommended. They'll be beautiful trees, beautiful purple flowers in the spring against the beautiful green leaves that they have. I think everyone will be pleased by them. And it's going to be the tree form, not shrub. Any questions on that? Okay. The second update, and this one unfortunately isn't a very positive one. Red Brick Kitchen did announce on social media that they are permanently closed. And with that, that's all I've got for you this evening, unless you've got any questions for me.
Thanks, Michelle. I hadn't heard. That's too bad. Julie, did you have a question?
Yes, I also heard that possibly the Fillmore is closing. Have you heard anything on that?
When I spoke with Coley a couple weeks ago, when he had closed the Fillmore for carryout, it was that it just wasn't getting enough business to make the carryout worthwhile. He did not in any way indicate that the Fillmore is closed permanently. I will follow up with him, but that's as much as I know on it right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I saw the staff out with all the tables and chairs, cleaning them, I think it was Friday. So I think hopefully they're going to be back.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to sneak down the agenda here, if that's okay. I'm at Board, Commission, and other reports. Is there anything there that anybody wants to touch on before I move down to City Manager report?
I'll come up about the wave. We have a meeting this Saturday, a
Okay.
wave board meeting that will talk about the process of starting that back up again with the safety issues, for drivers as well as passengers. That will be a pretty long meeting because there's a lot going on.
Gotcha.
Well, I did receive the contracts from Wave from Michaeline, so those will be on consent agenda at the next meeting. There's like a very minor $200 increase or something that, but overall it's basically the same rate as last year. So we do have those for the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you, Courtney.
All right, Courtney, I'll let you give your report, please.
So now that more of society is reopening, we do plan to reopen the office on Monday. We are having Doors and Drawers help us. They actually delivered a couple temporary sort of sneeze guard, plastic temporary things that we can actually use throughout the city as we need them. They'll also be installing like a tempered glass permanent, I don't know, whatever you call it, barrier between the public and the staff. I hope that that can get done this week. If it doesn't, we can, we can still open without it. We'll still be encouraging people to use the drop boxes and the mail. We got an exorbitant amount of mail today between water bills and absentee ballot applications because, as the Secretary of State sent out those, and we have gotten just piles of them back. So people are definitely taking advantage of that. Those can be emailed or mailed or dropped off in the drop box. See, one thing I did ask Jim Carson about the status of our use of the senior center. When the city, so we can do virtual meetings until the end of June so far under the governor's orders. If she moves the state into phase 5, that would allow 50 people indoors. So we could potentially go back to having live public meetings in July. But now I need to make sure that it's going to be okay for us to use the senior center because, they've really tried to keep that sterile because of the Meals on Wheels. So the senior center board is meeting on Wednesday, and he was hoping to have some feedback because our most pressing issue is that we have public hearings for Planning Commission in July, or a public hearing for Planning Commission in July that needs to get published needs to go to the paper the end of this week. So we need to figure out, perhaps there's a way that, council could meet in person but still have a Zoom option for people, but that's something that we need to figure out. But it should be helpful once I hear from Jim on Wednesday.
I did also speak to him this afternoon about the election in August.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, that's not really negotiable because that really can't be changed. But yes, that's good. The fire station sign should be up Wednesday. There's pink flags where that will go up. One of the other issues is generally we did not make MAV mow the entirety of that property. We just kind of had them do 10 feet as we do with most vacant properties where you just sort of do 10 feet off the right of way. We don't really have the equipment to do it, honestly. We don't own what we would need to really do that because it's very uneven. It's not a flat surface. It's full of rocks and debris. So we're gonna get a quote to see about maybe a local contractor doing that and see if that might be reasonable to do monthly, just so it's kind of beaten back a little bit more than it has been. Let's see. The farmers market opened Saturday. From what I've heard, it went well. Dana has done an excellent job. If you guys are ever there at the market and you see her, please thank her because honestly, I don't even think we would have been able to do it. I mean, she's put so much time in reading and thought and communication with vendors that it would have been basically impossible for staff to do that without her. So I really appreciate it. Like I said, I think it went well. She said she was tired. It was a long day because I think it's stressful the first time, but I think that it's good that the vendors were able to get back out there, and the citizens or the people that attended the market were very cooperative with the rules. Let's see. Oh, we did get an email that there is a demonstration planned for Friday at 2 p.m. and they're going to, there have been, as you probably have all seen, kind of ongoing daily ones in Monument Park, all very peaceful. And so they're going to be sort of marching, but using the sidewalk, starting in Monument Park, going down to Edison, to 5th to Central, back to Monument Park, just kind of making a small loop. The sheriff, is aware. They've been helping actually her to coordinate to keep everything kind of on the sidewalk and so that it's manageable. So that will be Friday at 2. And you will see that art installations have started to go up, the new ones for this year. There's a new one at La Fontaine and a new one at the Jeffers Plaza so far. I don't know that the library one's been changed out yet. Waste Management did schedule a spring cleanup, which is good news. That will be July 6th. And I think the only other thing under my report was Dexter Days. We did receive what was in your packet, which was a modified plan that the committee had submitted. We did talk to the sheriff's office. I talked to the health department. There's still just concern because even with the health department did confirm that with phase 5 of the reopening, it would take it up to 250 people that would be allowed in an outdoor gathering. And I think, we all know that Dexter Days is typically, well over 250 people. Right now it's at 100 people in phase 4. So there just continues to be questions about how that would really be practical to, with the market, we have, 10, 15 vendors, only 20 people under the pavilion. You have to wait in line until the 20 people clear. It's a little bit more of a controlled space. I'm not really sure how that can translate into Dexter Days at this point. But if anybody has any questions or feedback on that. The unlimited group is not until phase 6, which is supposed to be a vaccine or a treatment. So I'm just not sure how soon we will be moving to that phase.
So Courtney, let me jump in here, or council, let me jump in here for a second. I've read this this 8.5 by 11 letter to us from the council a number of times since we received it, and over the weekend I ended up talking with Julie Wilkinson a little bit. I think it was Saturday, maybe it was Sunday I guess afternoon. And there's no question to me that this group wants to find a way to hold something, because as I think you've read, this would be the 49th year in a row, and that's a pretty special number, leading up to next year, which would be 50. So I told Julie over the phone, and she did a real good job of making sure we kept it to ourselves a little bit. But I asked her to, let us have a little discussion about this. And I'd like council to ask the question to themselves, is there any size event that we could work towards? I took some time on Sunday to explain to Julie that the reason this is not on the agenda for a straight approval was that I was concerned about the uncertainty of how many people our event would draw. And, to me, the whole 6-foot separation rule has followed every amount of guidance that's come out relative to this SARS-CoV-19 pandemic. 6 feet is the rule. Now the governor has talked about, in this current stage, 100 is the magic number. And when I think of Monument Park on even its slowest period of time for Dexter Days, it's over 100. Okay, but if you took a few things out of play, and they're trying in their email here or in their communication, if you took a few things out of play, like, to me, the social tent is a huge draw that doesn't need to be there in support of some of the other activities that could take place. And what I'm wondering is if it wouldn't make sense for maybe a council member or two to work with the Dexter Days committee a little bit to see if there's some elements that we might be comfortable bringing back for a vote. The uncertainty of no decision makes it very difficult on them. And while we tried a month ago to say that we were uncomfortable, they'd like to know if we don't want to do it, they want us to vote no. Okay, and I don't think any of us on council really want to say no. We all like Dexter Days. It's become part of what we know to be very Dexter. So what I'm wondering is, so this conversation really kind of goes hand in hand with what's later on our agenda, where we're talking about an emergency ordinance to add spots that add people. Now that's with a focus on, helping the restaurants or the businesses out by the use of some of our common areas. It's really not clear to me in all this, when somebody puts a number like 100 or if we make it to the next stage where it's envisioned to be 250, what area does that constitute? Is that Monument Park? Is it Monument Park with Central Street closed? Is it downtown? I don't know that I understand the area size on how to apply the number of people rule. Because truthfully, if you're 6 feet apart, that should work no matter how many are in an area. But again, I'm not an expert on this. I guess what I wanted to ask council, and then I'll shut up for a second or stop talking. You know, if there's a way to have a very small event that helps them keep it going, I'm willing to work towards that. I'm not saying that I'm there today necessarily. I certainly don't think in my vision it would include the social tent. But I'm wondering what the other council members, or how the other council members feel. So maybe we can approach this from that perspective and have just a little bit of a discussion on this.
Well, you want me to give a shot first?
Yeah, Paul, thanks for breaking the
That's
silence,
Scott.
buddy.
I'll listen to Scott if ever that was him, but I'm like you, Sean. I just think that the anxiousness of this happening, and I understand it's the 49th, and it wouldn't make any difference if it was the 50th. If this had happened, we would have restrictions on it, okay? And not by our choosing, but by the issue of the COVID-19, the governor's restrictions. I just don't feel comfortable myself doing it. The social tent is definitely not even relative in this discussion. It's out. I don't know how you can have vendors there and have somebody 6 feet apart when you can't control it. I don't know how you can have any of the other things that they have that way. The chamber is still not comfortable with having even the music in the park on Friday nights because we don't know how to control it. And is that our responsibility to control it and have people there say, hold it, no, you're not 6 feet apart, or you can't sit here, you've got to stay out further? I just don't understand how you can control that in any fashion. And I think it puts back onto us the responsibility to do that. I don't feel comfortable as a council person standing there. I'm not sure the police want to do it. And I'm not sure that the Dexter Days people will do it either, okay? So as much as I felt that I have been restricted in a lot of things that I wanted to do this year, it's not happening. Pat and I have always gone to the Jazz Fest. They're still hoping that's going to happen. That's actually weekend after Labor Day. I don't know if that's even going to happen either. And Pat and I, as old as we are, it's our 60th anniversary. We're going to go down for 2 days. I think we've made a decision. We're not going down no matter what happens. I don't know how, with 5,000 people in Hart Plaza, you can be 6 feet apart, even standing in line to get a hot dog or a corn dog or whatever. So we've made a decision that we're not going down no matter what. And I just think that as painful as this is, that everybody's going to come to the realization that it can't be done. The only thing I thought that could happen was the fireworks. And if people would socially distance themselves doing that, spread around out around the area there, not cluster in along Mill Creek Park, that was something I thought would be a neat thing. But once again, I remember being there and people are shoulder to shoulder along there, and I don't know how you keep them separated. I will say one thing, that when I'm out and about, most people are using a mask. And I feel very thankful for that. And of course, I wear one as well. But I just don't see how it can happen this year under any conditions as much as I'd like to see it happen.
Thanks, Paul. Scott, did you want to go next?
Sure, just a couple of comments. First of all, I would agree with the statement that the social tent is a non-starter. I just don't see how that can happen. I don't think we want to be responsible for encouraging that kind of gathering and that density, and I don't think we want to put it on the sheriff to try to enforce the distancing that would be required if it happens. So that's sort of a separate thing from the Dexter Days question. I'm a little intrigued about the idea or the question that you posed, Sean, of is it feasible to hold a smaller event? I don't really know what that'd look like. You know, I don't think that, one of my concerns is that so many other events this summer have been canceled that when an event would occur, that it would be a larger draw because there's a pent-up demand for people to do things, especially families. And even if we tried to scale down the event, just because of that pent-up demand and the lack of other weekend diversions for families, maybe we would draw the same crowd as ever. And then you're right back where you started. So I have a hard time seeing how it could happen responsibly. And as of today, I'm not in favor of the event occurring this year because of that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
Sean, I have some comments I'd like to make, please.
Okay, Julie, please go next. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I said before, I sat in on the meetings with the Dexter Days Committee a number of times when I was representing the city council at their meetings. And I know how hard this team of people work and how they will want to promote our city, and they just do a fabulous job. And I hate to see it have to die, especially with number 50 coming up next year. But I don't know. I don't know what to say. I definitely would say the social tent has to be off the plate. Absolutely. But when I see these protests and these marches on television, I mean, there's more than 200 people elbow to elbow, nose. But is it up to us to monitor this and make sure they're 6 feet apart? I don't know. I guess I don't know where to go with this. I hate to see it die again because 50 is coming up next year, but it's a dilemma. Sorry, I can't give you a decision one way or another.
That's okay. Thanks for speaking up, Julie.
Dawn?
Yeah, Donna.
What I keep thinking about is that a big portion of what happens during Dexter Days has to do with the wonderful expansion that they've done of children's activities. But that's all hands-on, and I don't see how you can possibly monitor kids, whether you try to have them down at Mill Creek or wherever. I don't see how you can monitor that. So I'm inclined to say that, you know, we should make it known that this is hard for them and that they'll be back full force next year with the 50th celebration, but I don't think this is the year for them.
Okay, Donna, thanks. They did indicate that they were planning to cancel kids' events.
Oh, okay.
In their email or their latest memo to us, but
Okay.
there's still not you know, a lot of definition with how many vendors and that type of thing. So I appreciate the comments.
And then where do those kids go if they don't have kids' activities?
Well, it's a good question. Zach or Jim, do you wish to add anything? Jim, you have your hand up, I think, please.
Yeah, I concur a lot with what Scott and Paul had said too. You know, with all the other cancellations going on, I think there, you know, would be a true risk that we could end up with a large crowd, which isn't what we want at this time. And I just think it needs to wait and try to make, you know, come back next year and, you know, put on a good event next year.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Zach, I'm not sure if you're interested in saying anything or not on this. It's okay if you don't want to.
I have nothing to add to what's been already discussed.
Okay, so let me just say one of the things that the Dexter Days Committee has asked for is a decision on, you know, their application. I mean, they filled out the application a month ago as best they could. They made some attempt to try to clarify it relative to the you know, what was in the packet here. But the indecision hurts them because they don't know whether to plan for it or not plan for it. And if, I guess this is not on the agenda for approval, but, you know, I guess the question I would ask is, does anybody see their mind changing in 2 weeks? If we put it, or are we better off adding it to the agenda and taking a vote so that they have some, you know, idea of the direction? I'm okay either way. If you want to wait, we'll put it on the agenda so they have an official action. I think they sort of know how everybody feels, but I look to council for guidance on this, you know, that there has been an application submitted and they would like to know our decision. Do we want to vote tonight, or, which is, you know, not exactly, it's not on the agenda officially, but I know Julie is listening.
Yes, I am. Oh, the other Julie, sorry.
Sorry, a representative, at least one representative of the committee is, the Dexter Days Committee is listening, is all I'm saying.
I do see that in their letter, they do have some alternative dates. Do we want to consider having that discussion with them about an alternative date?
Well, I guess, okay, so let's touch on that. Does August to September make a difference to anybody in what's been said or the reasons in terms of the grouping and the?
Sean, I think everything right now is month to month. I mean, we're structuring our plans with my company to return to the office, and structure we're following is a month by month process. We just don't know how things are going to develop. So to answer your question, I think a month could make a difference, but it probably isn't enough for me tonight to vote yes for September based on what we know today.
Okay.
Jim Smith has his hand up.
Well, yeah, Mr. Smith, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'd go ahead and recommend that we put it on next meeting's agenda, and we'll consider it at that time. But I think the consensus right now is that we would not approve it.
Okay, Ms. Fisher?
Well, just as Jim said, he was going to say next agenda. I was feeling that if they really need to know and we would be helping them out, I would be willing to modify tonight's agenda to take up that issue, so we can get some kind of word to them now. So that's all I was going to say.
I agree with Donna, and I'll make the motion to place it on the agenda as item number 6, I believe it is. No, excuse me.
5.
Item number 5, right. Can't count.
All right, so a motion by Cousins to add the consideration of Dexter Days as new business item L5. Is there
I'll
support?
second.
Second by Donna. Okay, discussion. Okay, Carol, if you'd please call the vote to add it to the agenda, please.
Yes. Smith,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Knight, No. Cousins,
Yes.
Keo.
Yes. Okay, so we've added item L5. All right, so Courtney, we're back to your, thank you for the discussion and for everybody for sharing your thoughts on that. I hope that it was helpful to Ms. Wilkinson, who was listening, and to the committee a little bit. It certainly helped me to hear all of your perspectives on it. I think there was pretty good unity there for the most part, but Courtney, did you have anything else to report under city manager report?
Oh, no, the only other thing is to say that the Avalon property has been closed. We received the funds today. We have our lease agreement to continue to use it as a community garden until October 10th. And we'll be working on our relocation plans in the meantime, but that transaction has been completed.
Thank you for that. And thank you for all the work that you and Justin and Michelle and Scott and everybody have done to help pull that together over the last couple of weeks. It's quite a lot of work is what I've observed from watching the number of emails back and forth. Jim Smith, I think your hand is still raised. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I'd ask to discuss the possibility of resuming or restarting the discussion of city offices.
Yep.
And I'd like to see that for the first meeting in July. To have a work session.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, any further questions for Courtney? All right, seeing none, I'll move on to my report. Couple of things. I do have board, commission, and committee appointments, as well as student appointments on the consent agenda. Hopefully you saw those. Been a lot of communication back and forth across the last couple of weeks with different folks. You'll notice on the student applications that I'm recommending 3 students for planning and 3 for parks. I did that in part with some help from Justin talking to the parks chair, but I was able to talk to the planning commission chair. Both of those chairs of those committees are willing to give a little bit of extra time to have a 3rd person there. We had 11 people that submitted applications over the last year since we appointed the current 8 students to the 4 boards. And I was able to get a hold of 10 out of those 11. One never returned a call. So anyway, I was able to get the 10 of them placed as best I could, aligned with what their interests were. So hopefully this phase of our board committee participation could take the next step. We do have several people returning. I listed those for you on the recommendation. So given that we don't have any discussion about the consent agenda at that time, I thought I'd make sure I brought it up under my report in case somebody has a question for me. I was able to fill a DDA opening that has really been a person that has not been able to participate, and that's the role that Dan O'Haver played. Now that Mike Fitzpatrick lives within the district, Dan was our resident in the district. So Karen Magditch is my recommendation to take Dan's spot. And then everybody else that has been recommended is somebody that wants to continue and that I thought has been doing a good job on the various committees. So if you have any questions about any of those, I'm happy to talk to you about them or talk about that. In light of, outside of the COVID-19 pandemic, in light of what's happened in our country following the events that took place in Minneapolis and other times, I thought it was important to reach out to our sheriff and to talk to him a little bit, find out how he's doing. He's a very proud, gentle leader. He's got excellent words, and I won't do him justice by what he said to me on the phone, but I wanted to convey to everybody that I thought it made sense to stay in touch with our sheriff department. They have been very professional in handling all of the requests, as Courtney mentioned, or in monitoring and supporting the rights for these peaceful protests, which I think are important that they occur, and they need to occur. And if you have the opportunity to participate, that's okay too, if you want to. But I thought it made sense to touch base with Sheriff Clayton, and I wanted to put that in my report to recognize that there are things going on there that they're trying to make a difference there too. And law enforcement is getting a watchful eye these days, but our team is, I think, doing a very good job, or trying to do a very good job. And I just wanted to state that. I plan to touch base with him every couple of weeks just to find out and make sure things are going forward and that we're available. If there's something you want me to ask him at any point in time, please feel free to get in touch with me. I'd be happy to convey a question or find out or ask for information if you need it. I just thought that was important to publicly say here. As Courtney mentioned, the closing on the Avalon property, that came together. We did it, most of the reviewing of documents and the signing of documents, and we even redid some documents on Friday afternoon. There's just a lot of paperwork involved in a transaction that it doesn't always seem so hard. And anyway, I'm happy and very thankful that the closing on the sale of that property means that project is going to go forward. I think it's a big moment in our history here, and all the council members deserve a lot of credit for listening and thinking through this and talking about it openly. And I appreciate each and every one of your roles in helping support them and the people that this project is going to help. At times, this has been a tough issue, but I appreciate everybody who put their mind to this and put their mind behind it. And anyway, I look forward to seeing it blossom in the future. Jim, we'll work to get the 13th scheduled for something relative to city offices. I think that's a topic that needs to come back up, especially in light of the discussion that's on the agenda later about potentially moving the millage forward. And in my opinion, if we don't have a complete picture of what the options are, we're not doing justice to that vote. But we can save more of that comment for later, but we'll get that scheduled as you requested. So thanks for reminding us there tonight. Does anyone have a question for me? Okay. Seeing none, then I'd like to move on to, Donna Fisher has her hand up.
I was looking forward to what's coming.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Paul, before I get to consent agenda, Paul, did you have anything to comment on related to your council?
Not this time, and I'm glad you recognized because it was skipped over the last two times, and I appreciate it.
I don't believe I skipped it intentionally. If I thought I touched.
I didn't say you did.
I apologize. Okay.
I'm all set. Thank you very much.
All right, Ms. Fisher.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the 5 items listed on the consent agenda. Bills and payroll in the amount of $272,222.94, or maybe it's 97.
97, correct?
97 cents. The quote for the contractors 2 or $15,500 for Forest Street Sidewalk Project. The schedule resolution, the committee and commission reappointments, and the student rep reappointments or appointments.
Okay, Mr. Smith, you have your hand up?
Yes, I'll second.
Okay, thank you both. Motion by Ms. Fisher, second by Mr. Smith, Councilmember Smith. Carol, can you call a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Fisher,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Knight,
Yes.
Cousins,
Yes?
Smith,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Keo.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. We have no old business tonight. So we are down to page 4 of the agenda. We now have 5 new business items. L1 is a consideration from Planning Commission. It's the consideration of Planning Commission's recommendation to approve the request from Encore Theater for conditional rezoning of 7714 Ann Arbor Street and a vacant parcel to the west on Edison.
I would like to make that motion. I think it's printed on page 107.
Thank you, Paul.
Second.
Motion by Paul, second by Fisher. Discussion. I'm going to let Michelle add any comments she may need to, or at least ask if there's questions.
Okay, before I give you the quick summary, does anybody have any questions? Okay. Julie, did you have a question?
No.
Okay. I see a little square gets lit up, so that's why I wondered. Okay, just for the record, so that we all know what this is for. The Encore Theater has submitted, and you are considering their conditional rezoning application. It is, it's for the property located at 7714 Ann Arbor Street and the vacant property that's at the corner of Ann Arbor Street and Edison. In the packet, in my review, it has the specific parcel numbers. I won't read those. But the applicant is requesting the conditional rezoning from R1B, one family district, the Village Residential Commercial District, to VC, Village Commercial District. And that is to allow an adaptive reuse of the existing Copeland building, which is 22,440 square feet, for a theater. The zoning ordinance, specific sections 1502 and 1503, do allow theaters as principal permitted uses, and buildings over 10,000 square feet of gross floor area are special land uses in the Village Commercial District. They have, it took a little while to get here, but the submittal that the applicant has provided for the Planning Commission meeting, or for the Planning Commission to actually be able to make a recommendation for you, speaks volumes. You heard me say it at your last meeting. I'll say it again. There's an expectation that an applicant will provide the required information in the required format in order for decisions to be made. And the applicant has been able to do that. You have a full site plan. You have a conditional rezoning agreement that has been voluntarily amended by the applicant so that it's consistent. Information in that agreement is consistent with the site plan. That is huge in order to be able to consider this type of application, because as you'll recall, you don't get to put conditions on the approval. It's either yes, we're going to agree with this, or no. So the Planning Commission did conduct a public hearing back on on April 6th. The comments are listed in my review. They revolved primarily around traffic impacts, parking, impacts from parking in the parking lots. Those were mainly the concerns. But as I recall, no one said they did not want it, period. So the applicant and the Planning Commission provided the direction, and the applicant followed through. So as it pertains to on-street parking, there's going to be or available 215 spaces. That's off-street parking, off-street parking, in other words, on their site, improved parking on street, and in a private off-street parking lot that would be shared. We have correspondence from St. Andrews that they are working on a shared parking arrangement with the applicant. The signage has been brought into compliance with the zoning ordinance. So everything you see on the plan would meet the ordinance. They will still come in for administrative approval for zoning compliance for that signage. There is an alley that splits the property, as you're aware of. They don't have jurisdiction over that. That's the city's responsibility, but they'll work with the city if the city determines that that alleyway should be closed or a portion of it closed during their performances. They're providing additional landscaping to screen the parking lots from the immediately adjacent residential yard to the north, as well as additional landscaping on the Edison Street side and Ann Arbor Street side of the lower parking lot, and they filled in the landscaping on the upper parking lot adjacent to Ann Arbor Street. Their hours of operation have been clarified, 1 hour before performances, 1 hour after, and that pertains mostly to the ancillary cafe, bar, and concessions and their retail shop. The perpetual easement, they provided a revised Alta ASCM land survey, and it correctly now identifies the easement area, both with the library page as well as the outline of the area. And the conditional rezoning agreement does indicate that they will abide by the perpetual easement. There are no changes. They're proposing a maximum seating capacity of 250 seats in the auditorium, which you can see on the revised architectural plans. They have a total staff of 70, and again, consistent with what's in their conditional rezoning agreement. They do not plan to build anything on the Copeland property, and that is also identified on the plan as well as in the agreement. You have a copy, or you have a list of all the current uses that are allowed in the R1B, as well as the proposed uses. And as I've stated, the applicant has addressed all of the concerns that the Planning Commission had regarding the conditional rezoning agreement, as well as those comments that came from the public. And I'm happy to bring this in front of you today. And Dan Cooney with the theater is here for participation if you've got any questions for him.
Michelle, I've got one question.
Could be one of the first.
So how does, it's related to the letter from the church, St. Andrew's Church, that's in the packet.
Right.
Okay, so that letter is indicative of the fact that they're supportive of an arrangement, but it's not a final, it's not a final document by any means. And
so how do you put teeth to that then?
Well, that, and what happens if it goes away in the future? So
in the special land use consideration, that's where you put the conditions of approval as applicable. The shared parking agreement would be requiring the applicant to finalize that shared parking arrangement with the church and submit it to the city is the condition you would put on the special land use. If for some reason the shared parking arrangement were to be terminated by one or both of the parties, depending on how their agreement is written up, then the applicant would need to come back to the city for the Planning Commission to determine if, well, there's still enough parking even without it, so they'd have to come back to the city.
Okay, thank you. I know that that question relates to maybe the next action, but I wanted to talk about it ahead of time, I guess.
Completely understood.
I have a couple of questions, please, Sean.
Go ahead, Julie. Thanks for speaking up.
Yes, I'm looking at one of the maps that I see here, and it's, I think it's the one on page 148. And I see the red line also encompasses that private home on the corner of Hudson and 4th Street. Is that part of that package?
Which page was it, Julie, please?
Or the what? The map? Well, I see it on a couple different maps, but the one I'm looking at right now is on page 148.
All right, let me get to that, please.
So that's in Carlisle Wortman's letter.
Okay, that's in the, okay, that's in the special, let's see, hang on just a second.
It's in the rezoning letter on dated May 21st, conditional rezoning letter.
I see it. Thanks for catching that. I did not, it does not include the house that's at the corner of 4th and Hudson. That would be 7711 Hudson, 4th Street. It does not include that.
Okay, so that's owned
Sorry
by a
about that.
totally different person.
Correct, that's owned by someone else.
Okay, then the second question I have, I know we have the playground equipment on the grassy part of that lot, you know, that butts up to Ellison Street there. Has there been any discussion on possibly moving that playground equipment to a different site and expanding their parking lot?
No, they're not proposing it, and as far as I know, there's been no conversation between the schools and the city.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there other council members or hands up? I don't see. Paul, you're okay?
I'm okay.
Okay, Zach's hand just went up. Zach, I'll give you the floor, sir.
Yep, just wanted to confirm for staff that is the conditions proposed under conditional zoning map amendment were proposed by the applicants.
Yes, sir.
And has the city attorney reviewed the zoning agreement?
Yes, sir.
And he's happy with it as it is written?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for those questions, Zach. Okay, I don't see any other council discussion. Am I missing anyone? Okay, remind me, I believe we had a motion by Cousins, second by Fisher, right?
Yes, Fisher.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Cousins, second by Fisher, to recommend take the recommendation of planning commission. It's on page 107 of the packet. Ms. Jones, if you could call the vote, please.
Yes. Bell?
Yes.
Cousins?
Yes.
Michelle's?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Fisher?
Yes.
Knight?
Yes.
Keo?
Yes. Okay, motion carries for the rezoning, or the conditional rezoning. New business item L2 is.
I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, go ahead, Paul.
Put it on page 161 for approval.
Okay, so that's a motion to accept the planning commission recommendation to approve the special land use application from Encore Theater for 7714 Ann Arbor Street and the vacant parcel in Edison.
I'll second.
Okay, let me just get down to that, please. Okay, so Paul, you're making it on page 161 with the 10 conditions that are set there.
Correct, with the approval. Yes, approve it. Yes, with those conditions. Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure there are 10. Everybody's aware of that, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, Donna Fisher, your hand is up, please. Discussion?
I'll second.
Thank you, I'm sorry, thank you for seconding. discussion by council? Any discussion needed?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Zach. I see your hand waving.
Yeah, an actual hand. So just a nerdy point here, that until the conditional zoning map amendment ordinance becomes effective, this doesn't quite stick because they're still in the old zoning district. I know it's a really tiny detail that's kind of an expansion of condition 1 that that needs to happen first before permits and those types of things can be pulled for this.
How long does something like that take?
So,
My recollection is zoning ordinances are effective 7 days after published, right?
Gotcha.
that is correct. Like with a plan development agreement, the agreement has to be signed by all the parties, and once it's signed, then I put the notice in the paper, because then the action is finalized. We'll work with Dan to get that agreement signed by him and by the schools and by the city as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. Zach, floor is still yours. Anything else?
I'm good.
Okay. Other council member questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Ms. Jones, please call the vote to approve the motion on page 161 with the 10 conditions, please.
Yes. Michelle,
Yes.
Knight,
Yeah.
Smith,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes,
Cousins,
Yes.
and Keo.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, for your work on that. Congratulations to the Encore team. Let's see, we're down to new business item L3, which is consideration of a resolution to adopt an emergency ordinance to mitigate the impacts of the current pandemic. And Michelle, is there a motion? Maybe we can get a motion on the table first before we discuss. Is there a council member that would like to move
I'll
this?
move adoption of the resolution on page 188.
Okay, motion by Michelle's, thank you.
I'll second.
Second by Bell, thank you. Okay. Michelle, I know you worked on this. I believe Zach contributed a great deal to this. Maybe one of the two of you could take us through what's here. Plus you had passed out, if I remember, something that you had emailed to everybody that Justin needs to put up on the screen.
Yep.
So just kind of walk us through this a little bit.
Okay. Zach, do you want to start or do you want me to?
I'll let you go.
Okay. So I want to thank Zach because he did do a lot of the heavy lifting. It made my job infinitely easier, considering the amount of workload has not decreased under our current COVID situation. So what you have in front of you is a very thorough emergency order, and it follows your charter and what the charter says about an emergency order, not just in the process, but also sort of the format. So you start with the enacting clause that explains why this emergency order is being provided. And it's for the temporary use of public spaces, such as on-street parking, public parking lots, sidewalks, etc. And then those private spaces that would consist of off-street parking, sidewalks, yards, and other similar. Excuse me. And the ordinance overall is for the administration, enforcement, and extension thereof. You then have the declaration, which is all, and the purpose, all very standard information, but when you're doing the ordinance, you've got to have it. When you get to item 4, you're into the scope. And again, this is following your provisions in your charter and explaining all of the necessary reasons under the COVID situation. When you get into section 5, it starts to talk about, and this is where the change had to occur, what this use of the space is going to be. And because this is geared in some ways or addresses the use of the public and private spaces for the serving of alcoholic beverages, we need to make sure that we're consistent in our ordinance with the rules that have been promulgated by the Liquor Control Commission. They've done an outstanding job getting their process in place so that as businesses start to open and need these larger outdoor areas or need an outdoor area to begin with, the Liquor Control Commission can turn around a review very quickly, provided an applicant provides them with the information they need. So instead of it being called a social district, it's being called the outdoor service area. And then it has some basic provisions in regards to where that service area can be. Again, it is consistent with the Liquor Control Commission. And then it outlines an approval process that we do. We're not duplicating what the Liquor Control Commission is going to require. This is going to be quite detailed. We don't quite need it as detailed as they are going to require, but most applicants, I presume, will provide almost as much to us. Excuse me. There is a hold harmless that will need to be provided for anybody using public spaces. There's also insurance that will be required. Both of those are standard currently with your outdoor seating permits. It gives you the authority you need to withhold a permit if you don't have enough information, if you can't verify what's being asked for, or if you do issue a permit, what your process is to take a permit back. You can place conditions on a permit. The expiration would be the 1st of October. This is a short period of time that's being asked for this emergency order. Like I said, suspension and revocation, excuse me, there's an appeals process if needed, and then the general provisions. And this is gets into the guts of things that I think you're most concerned about, which is how do you, if you're going to allow parking or the repurposing of existing on-street parking spaces, how are you going to make that safe for the business and the people that are using the space, as well as the general public that are traveling? And so I presume this is an area that we'll have a lot of discussion about. It addresses barriers. They would need to be provided, and whether that's by the city or approved by the city and the applicants providing it. And it may be a combination thereof. Excuse me. Outdoor furniture, lighting, and then of course, if alcohol is being served, that business that's licensed by the state also needs to have that additional outdoor license from the state for the outdoor seating area. This ordinance also addresses the retail businesses. We haven't left those guys out in the cold. So they could use the same public or private spaces. They would need almost everything identical to the businesses with liquor, only they don't need a liquor license from the state. They would just need a permit from the city. Excuse me. It gives you the ability, if you wanted to close streets for special events, excuse me, even public parking lots. You could, if so chose, to expand your farmer's market. as part of those events. Signage, there is regulations for signage. Excuse me. And, excuse me, the public sidewalks, if the use of the public sidewalk is what's being proposed, there still needs to be maintained that 5-foot area, that 5-foot width for pedestrian access, whether that's 5 feet in front of the building or 5 feet on the other side of whatever activity is in front of the building. That public access still has to be maintained on the sidewalk. And then there's just the traditional legal formalities of validity and severability of an ordinance, the enforcement. It's tied with your municipal civil infraction ordinance, and then the enactment, if you so choose, this evening. I know that's a lot to digest. Let me know if you've got any questions.
Okay, Donna, you have your hand up, please.
Yes, a couple of things. How do you make this equitable? If you've got some parking spaces in front of business A, how does business C down the street have the same access or the same use? What do we do to make the equitable access? And Michelle, do you feel that this is as urgent as it was, given that restaurants are opening now? And we're moving into another phase. Is there an urgency for this, like there was last meeting?
I believe the urgency still exists. One of the things that I did hear, or that I have heard from businesses, or from people that have businesses up north, people are not going inside restaurants as much as they were. They are more comfortable being outside because of the whole social distancing and the virus. And there's still a fear of the virus. It hasn't gone away, and people recognize that, but they also recognize they really want to get out and do things, but they want to do it in a safe manner. Being able to provide the option for a business to use a public sidewalk if they don't have that currently, or expand into a parking spot or a parking lot, helps to make up for what those businesses lose, especially restaurants, because if they, with them opening, they can only have 50% of their capacity inside. And some of them, even if they use an outside area, may not be able to make up the full 50%, but every little bit will help. And that's my understanding from the businesses.
Thank you. And the equitable piece?
So on equitable, so if you've got each business that is in food service, if they're not, if they serve alcohol, they can't share their space. If you've got businesses that don't have the liquor license component, they could actually share spaces, and that might help with the equitable question that you had. The other thing is, you may not necessarily need to, I know at our last meeting, sorry, I'll digress a little. At our last meeting, we talked about the proposal or the suggestion that a resident had that you close off the north side of Main Street from Alpine to Broad. And there was a lot of discussion about how, well, some businesses supported that and other businesses that I talked to didn't support it. But I did talk with Chris Jones from the Creamery. He would be okay if the spaces in front of his business weren't closed, if he'd be allowed to utilize the area around the clock for his outdoor seating. That would be a big help for him, and it would help for the equity that you were asking about, Donna. The rest of the businesses around town, Aubrey's has a large outdoor seating area in the front. If they wanted and could work it out with the rest of the businesses in that building. They also have outside behind them. They'd still need to come in for approvals, but they could also expand there as well. Beer Grotto has an outdoor seating currently, but they're only going to be able to have half the number of tables that they currently have. So if they could come in and apply to use a couple parking spaces, they can make up for the loss there. And those basically are your only restaurants on Main Street. The only other ones are going to be Revive and Joe and Rosie's. And you could take a couple of parking spaces there, even 3 at the most, and cordon them off. And that wouldn't impact anyone. I believe that even Mike Fitzpatrick would support that, and his business is the one that sits between them. The only other business for food is going to be Wings and Things, and they could close off some parking, or they could apply to have some parking spaces closed off on Broad Street that probably aren't going to impact any of the retail businesses or office businesses that are there, because you've got the public parking lot right next to that building.
Would we consider moving those people, Joe and Rosie's and Wings and Things on that side? Would we not offer them the greened area before we would offer them parking spaces out in the roadway?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
It's okay, I'll move. In terms of Wings and Joe and Rosie's, would we not offer them the the grassy areas in front of their store, and there's extra bit of sidewalk there? Would we not offer that to them prior to offering sidewalk?
So the grassy area is more in front of Three Bird and,
Okay.
excuse me, and the space in front of Hotel Hickman, his indoor eating area.
Okay.
So I don't think we'd probably go with the grassy area, but there probably could be more use of the sidewalk before we went into the parking area.
Okay.
I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. I'm all finished, Sean.
Thanks, Donna.
Thank you.
So, Michelle, I'm looking at the general provisions section, and the part about barriers and being provided by the city or approved by the city. So what kind of liability are we taking on for that?
So I haven't had the discussion with Scott in that legal realm there. Like if the city provides the barrier, what are the legal ramifications for that? Every applicant that would be, if this goes through, every applicant that would be issued a permit, if they met the eligibility and all the criteria, have to sign a hold harmless letter, and they have to provide insurance that names the city as an additional insured. So we are mitigating our risks through both of those actions.
I guess I'd feel better if I knew what our, I don't know, even know who to ask, our risk management folks or
well, we provide barricades for parades and events and things often.
Yeah, but not where cars are going 5 feet past, do we?
Well, when we block off Central or.
But like that street is closed.
Right, but Main Street isn't.
Well, that's my point.
Right, and we're closing, I mean, people are still driving right by where they're standing on Central, like, you know, where the booths are set up for Dexter Days, for example. You know, I mean, we have to have a gross negligence for us to be liable for something that would happen. So unless, you know, my concern is just more that we don't have enough barricades to accommodate barricading in, you know, multiple of these parklet things. You know, that's going to be an issue because it says either or. And so I would imagine most businesses are not going to want to provide them themselves, but we don't necessarily have that kind of stock to provide barricades.
How do you, the other logistic question I have is how do you apportion the area so that within the 100-person?
So the 100-person outdoor has to do with outdoor gatherings. When you're talking about restaurants and retail, the governor has very specific standards that they have to follow. And for restaurants, seating has to be arranged so that you've got the 6 feet distance between tables and people. Retail has the same thing. You have to set up, if somebody was coming in to ask for it, they have to provide a sketch that would demonstrate how they meet social distancing requirements. The restaurant's going to show tables and chairs. The retail's going to show where racks would be and where the circulation for people to walk would be. And that would be how we're able to determine if social distancing is being, it will be maintained.
So that there's not a 100-foot limit then, or a 100-person limit then?
They would be way higher than most retail because it's based on like square footage.
Well, no, I'm just thinking, I'm thinking about the entire area in front of the pub, since that's what we used as an example at the DDA meeting and 2 weeks ago when we talked about this.
So, like I said,
How do you apportion that?
we wouldn't be apportioning it. We're not looking at the entire Main Street anymore. We're only looking at allowing a business to determine if they want to apply to use spaces in front of their business. So in the pub, you're looking at probably 3 parking spaces, and they would have to show how they'd set up tables and chairs to provide that 6-foot distance that's required.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't realize that. So you could have little enclaves that stick out all over the place, is what you're saying?
Not for restaurants with liquor licenses. Theirs have to be individual. They can't be shared. Retail could be shared if that was something that the city wanted to allow. But it would not, we're a little bit different. We're asking for something a little different with this ordinance than what we talked about before. Like you had said, before we were talking about at your last meeting, at the DDA meeting, was all of Main Street on the north side between Alpine and Broad. With the way the ordinance is crafted and the research that's been done, excuse me, you couldn't take all of that parking on Main Street between Broad and Alpine and just make it one big shared space that Riverview would use and Dexter Pub would use and Wits End could use and Dexter Creamery, because liquor businesses cannot use shared spaces. They have to have their own.
No, I guess I understand that, and I can picture the whole thing with subdividing whatever. You know, I could picture it subdivided. I'm just trying to understand the part of this that is undefined, I guess, to me, or a little bit worrisome to me is the idea that you would have areas now with maybe 3 sides on the barricades or whatever they are, and people pulling in next to those and backing out from in the middle of possibly 2 enclaves. this has changed if we're not shutting the whole thing down to me.
So one of the things that I was able to find in the research, and I apologize for not being able to provide you with visuals. When you set up the what they call a parklet, and that's basically a platform that extends the sidewalk within the parking space. You're a distance from, think of it like this. It's like a building envelope. You have setbacks from your parking lines. You have setback from the end where the road drive surface meets where that parking lot line is. And you set up your barriers within to outline that envelope. Excuse me. That provides the extra distance that people need when they're making that turn into a parking space. In our case, head-on parking, or parallel parking if somebody was using a parallel space. All of our spaces are head-on parking, so they're angled. It's amazing that there are other communities that do this. Boston, for example, actually one of their busier streets, if I remember right, it's Congress. It's a 4-lane divided road down in their downtown, and they have on-street head-on parking, and they use these parklets to define an outdoor space. I wish I could do this. I can see it in my mind's eye, but I know I'm not communicating it. They use bumper blocks to connect the end of one parking space marker to the next one. And then inside of there is where they set up a barrier, whether it's a fence, whether it's a planter, a set of planter boxes, railings. That's the bumper blocks actually are what prevent the car from going into that area. They also use things that are much more involved and costly, like Zach had mentioned at the last meeting, concrete barriers or water-filled plastic barricades like you see at the school. It can be done, and it can be done safely. Communities all over do it.
Well, I guess where I'm at is I'd like to know, and I'm sorry, Council, for jumping in here. I'd like to know what constitutes a safe barricade. And the way the ordinance is written right now, it gives us the opportunity to provide it. I don't know that this talks about what costs we're incurring to do this. I think pictures would be helpful. I don't know who constructs these parklets. I don't know, there's a lot of questions to me still on this. And I love the intent of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that I've had my questions answered. I mean, is the city taking on costs to provide barricades? Courtney just said she doesn't know where she'd get them.
Right, we don't have concrete barricades. I think we have some bumper blocks, but we don't have a lot. Your questions are absolutely relevant, Sean. Some communities, even with the current economic crisis situation, require the businesses to bear all of the cost and all of the burden. I'm not saying that's the way we should go, or that the city should be the one providing. I think that's a decision council does have to make.
Michelle, let me ask one other question, and then I'll call on Jim, whose hand just went up. You made the comment in your opening remarks that this would go until October 1.
Mm-hmm.
am I understanding correctly that it can be in place for 60 days and then we would have to approve it by a 2/3 vote to extend it?
Yes, I misspoke when I said October. That's the long range. It would go 60 days and you have the ability to extend 60 more days,
Okay, so.
which puts us in the vicinity of October 1st.
Gotcha. All right. So my suggestion would be that maybe we try to get some pictures of what other people are doing and get an idea of who might be interested in applying so we can better understand the configurations that we're potentially being asked to approve administratively. And then bring this back in 2 weeks. Because the heart of the season, I mean, if this is good for 60 days, the heart of the season is July 4th through Labor Day. I mean, if we have to go beyond that, we can take that up at that time, but those are my thoughts. I'll call on Jim Smith and then Zach.
Sean, I have very similar concerns and feel that if some, definitely some illustrations and some examples of where this would be applied and in what manner, I think are very important. I'd like to make a motion that we postpone to the next meeting.
Point of order, that our ordinance or our charter says we have to take it up at the meeting it's introduced at. So I don't think that motion would be in order.
It does say that in our charter?
Or you can.
Did somebody look that up? Is that true? I didn't know that.
I wasn't sure if it said you have to or you can, because normally you can't take it up at the first meeting that you see it.
I was understanding that we didn't have to go through the normal, put it out there first type deal.
You don't. I mean, it says that it shall be adopted at the meeting at which it is introduced by an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the council members present and may be given immediate effect upon publication. So I think that's just saying that you can do it that way when normally you have to introduce it at one meeting and then pass it at the next.
Okay, Zach, your hand's still up. Did you want to make other comments?
Well, there's a motion that's been on the floor that's been ruled
Yeah,
valid.
okay. All right, I just wanted to make sure you were done with what your comment was. So, all right, so motion to postpone by Smith. Is there a second to do that? No second to postpone?
I'll second.
Who is that?
Bell.
Bell, okay, sorry, I was looking, okay. So motion by Smith, second by Bell to postpone. Any discussion on the postponement?
Yep.
Okay, good. I'd like to have some. 'Cause I'd like this to come back a little clearer so we can hopefully do something. Zach?
So, our businesses are hurting. They're hurting right now. They can open now, but people don't feel comfortable going into enclosed spaces. The folks who run these businesses said, we want this as soon as we can. I will say that this emergency ordinance is far more detailed than almost anything you'll find out there. Most of them are a page resolution that doesn't have any due process, doesn't provide much guidance for staff. So we're well ahead of the game of what most of the other communities are. I would say also that part of this discussion goes to, do we trust our staff? So this ordinance provides some pretty concrete guidance in some areas and allows discretion in other areas. I don't think we really need, it's as a policy body that we ought to debate, is it a water-filled barrier? Is it a concrete-filled barrier? Is it a bumper block with some fencing or a planter box around it? we've provided the general direction and the policy for staff to enact for it. We don't need to do the details to know that this will help improve businesses. And putting it off 2 weeks, who doesn't know what a concrete block looks like? It's written vague to allow discretion. Our city manager is allowed to spend up to $5,000 without having to get our permission. The DDA could spend money for it. Business owners might ask the schools for it. There are options to purchase these things. There are options to rent them. The Washtenaw County Road Commission, when they have projects, they rent them. So I know folks want to have absolutely every single detail, but sometimes you have to act. And businesses are trying to open. And how many more do we want to fail so we can know what color a concrete block's going to be? That's all.
Thanks, Zach. I'm not worried about the color of the concrete block.
But it's detail that perhaps goes far more than what a policy body needs, I suppose would be my argument.
Well, my questions were related to liability and cost, not color. Both of which are undefined here. I realize they allow the flexibility, but I'd like to know how it's going to be administratively handled. And I don't think I've heard that. And I think, by the way, I think that as business.
Could I, since we are doing,
Who's that speaking?
that was me, Sean.
Okay, hold on. So let me just finish my thought, Michelle. I'll get back to it. My feeling is that the businesses would like to know as much about what we're trying to do and whether they'd have to bear cost or liability or whatever. Also, I think it makes sense to look into that stuff. And as they're opening up their indoor, adding the outdoor is not something I don't think 2 weeks matters in this case. I think we should make sure we understand those things. Michelle?
Yes, thanks, Sean. I can see both you and Zach's points. So I'm going to offer a suggestion. Mike, we don't have a ZBA meeting this month, do we? So if staff can pull this together to provide you with the illustrations and explanation that is so sorely missing, and I take responsibility for that 100%. Could we set up a special council meeting for next Monday for you to consider this information instead of waiting 2 weeks?
Well, yeah, we potentially could. We could set up a special council meeting for Thursday. But I mean, it depends on when the information is available, and there's some questions I think that need to be asked or answered, Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, if everybody wants to bring it back that fast, we can talk about that, I guess. How about some of the other council members that haven't spoken up? Are there other thoughts out there? I wasn't trying to dominate the conversation. I just wanted to ask my questions.
Well, I'll speak. The chamber is certainly interested in getting businesses up and moving as fast as they can. From the reports that I've heard from those up north, Zach is right. People are concerned about eating inside. They're much more concerned about being able to eat somewhere, even if it's outside. And so that would be a help for them to do that. We can't answer everything, but I think that we need to move forward on this. I can wait until Thursday, I can wait till Sunday or till Monday, and I can wait till 2 weeks. But you have to realize that every time they're having a missed opportunity here, which they've already had a long time, they're hurting. This is an opportunity for us to help our businesses. And let me remind you that this is being done all over right now. Just watch the news and you'll see people that are eating outside. Cities, municipalities are providing that. Some of them are closing whole streets. And we need to move as fast as we can on this. This is not unique just to Dexter. And those answers weren't maybe thought out as much as they were for the other cities, but they're moving forward and allowing people to eat outside in a variety of different ways. We have a unique part of that, our city, that is tough to deal with, and that's a city that has a main street that goes right through the middle of it with a lot of traffic. And that complicates it. But let's be proactive on this as fast as we can, even without some of the answers.
Thank you, Paul.
I'm ready to take action on it tonight. Julie, excuse me.
Okay. All right. Well, there's a motion to postpone and then Michelle asked the question if we could bring it back in a few days, which I'm not opposed to, but the motion on the table was by Smith. I believe it was seconded by Bell.
Scott has his hand up.
Scott, go ahead, please. I don't see it.
I just want to say that I seconded it to forward the conversation, but I'm at the moment not in favor of postponing if we can act tonight. I think that, I was sitting here and I just Googled parklet and there's tons of images, and I do know that cities all over are doing this sort of thing. And all my years on the Planning Commission, I tried to lean in favor of local businesses whenever I could. And I think in this case, maybe, I don't know how badly local businesses are hurting. I'm not a local business owner, but I do think that they're in a tough spot. And the opening of indoor seating is only going to go so far because for the points that have been made. So, I favor moving forward with this. I trust our staff to implement it. I don't think the costs will be unreasonable to us. And frankly, with the liability, we have some protections that Michelle pointed out, but a third-party lawsuit is always a risk. And, I've often sat outside the beer grotto with only a little flimsy chain between me and cars that are zipping by, and
And a 6-foot curb.
okay. But I think, there's liability. I don't think we're going to give final resolution to that question, but I think we should move forward with this as quickly as we can.
So
Does that mean you're withdrawing your second?
Yes.
Thank you.
So this, should this ordinance say parklet somewhere?
I don't know what a parklet looks like, and I don't want it in there if I don't know what it looks like. I'm willing to deal with what the staff put together. I don't know if anybody else, a lot of these places are doing this without doing anything, making any motions, just doing it.
A parklet is a bit of tactical urbanism to add a small park in an area where they don't generally exist for various purposes in various places. So that's a very specific thing. The term part is very specific.
It's the extension of the sidewalk into that parking space so that you're creating a level extension of that sidewalk. You could, I presume you could allow for outdoor seating as well as the retail use and not worry about whether you have a level extension or not.
Well, Michelle, I'm just trying to get the definition of what it is we're approving. It doesn't say parklet, but that's been
Right.
introduced into the conversation, okay, tonight, not by me necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
I just would like to know, who's constructing these things. If the answer is we're putting that on the businesses, then I'm okay with that. But I don't. You can't build one for somebody and not for the other.
For the others, I agree.
And I don't. There's no defined cost in this. So I mean, if we put it on the business, I feel a little better about understanding what it is I'm approving in such an emergency. Now, if we have barricades to loan them, I suppose they can use them, but I don't know if we even have concrete barriers or water-filled things. Do we have any at all?
Well, we have some that we use for parades and shutting down Central Street and, road closures when people request road closures, but I don't know how many we have. I don't think there's enough for many, many spaces. I mean, we can see what they cost to purchase more.
But as I read this, we're not obligated to provide the barriers.
Okay,
Right,
well,
but we just have to decide, because if we're not gonna do that, then we have to be clear to the businesses, we're not gonna do that. But the way
Right,
that
let's
this is
take that.
worded, it's,
It says barriers shall be provided, and it says either by the city or approved by the city. So I think we're covered. We're not obligated.
Okay, so the policy from staff is that we're not going to provide them?
So the way it's written is to provide that flexibility. That was done intentionally. So if either city manager or the DDA looks out and says, hey, these things aren't that expensive, we might want to have these around for other uses, that it allows that flexibility for staff to do it. But if they aren't able to or not interested in doing that, then it puts the onus on them with the city being able to approve it. So it allows flexibility for staff to interpret and apply good sense.
Jim Smith has his hand up. Jim?
Some of the concerns I have is if this is going to call upon employees of the city to be utilized in placing these barriers, these barricades, to mark off the parking spaces that are going to be closed off, and then say if you do acquire some of these barricades, whether concrete or whatever type, we're talking a very, relatively short time period that they're going to be used. So then where are they going to be stored? That's going to take up, space that we may not have to be able to store things like that. So I'm very concerned that we're rushing, and I'm surprised that more people aren't willing to wait at least a couple weeks so we can get some more information, see some illustrations of where in the town that this is going to possibly be applied. I mean, a number of the restaurants downtown, it's already been stated that we've already given them the use of outside seating. Certainly if Riverview and Joe and Rosie's and any others down there, Wings and Things, if they, requested outside seating, I could see us expediting something like that. But seeing they already have, most of them already have the outside seating, I don't think the need to rush, tonight and not wait 2 weeks and for some additional information. I just don't think it's a wise thing to be rushing into this.
Well, and let me just say, folks, I'm not against moving forward tonight. I just am trying to establish the boundaries. If I think this could wait a week, and I'd be willing to have a special meeting to get some better clarity on it. But if we're essentially saying it or approve it, if we were to be approving this tonight, and we're limiting what we can spend to the city manager's authorization of 5,000, then I guess I can live with that. I just haven't heard anybody definitively say that's the number. Okay, I think time to clarify these things would be beneficial, but I'm not against helping the businesses. I want to be clear in that. I just don't think that this is presented with enough detailed for me personally yet. But if you can help me define it, I'd like to be in support with you. So are we saying that the city manager has 5,000 that she can put towards this?
Doesn't she always?
Well, I suppose she does if she knows that that's what people want her to do.
We can do that even if we don't want her to do it, okay? Under our rules.
Yeah, that's
Up
true.
to $5,000. She doesn't even have to tell us about it.
That's true, Paul. I'm just saying 5,000 doesn't go very far if a barricade costs 700.
I get you.
Okay, Zach, you had your hand up first, and then Jim, please.
Yep, I would be happy to offer authorizing staff to spend up to $5,000 towards this. And I just wanted to clarify that the existing outdoor seating spaces are permitted through the zoning ordinance, and they require a special land use, which by our law and state of Michigan law requires a public hearing, which requires noticing. So as much as we want to expedite it, it has to go through newspaper noticing, through planning commission hearing, to city council. So the most expedited, you're still talking 4 to 6 months.
Yeah, and this would do away with that. I agree with that. That's right. That's a great point to make. Jim?
Well, when the motion was made, it referred to the draft ordinance in the packet on page 181.
Remind me who made that?
I did.
Okay.
And then we received the email. I got my email after I made a request for it during the meeting. And the email has changes to what was in the packet. And so, I mean, I haven't heard anything to do with the motion take into account the changes that are being presented in the email. I would think from a standpoint alone of just getting this email today, that's in itself warrants a delay until either a special meeting or the next regular meeting.
Like I said, I'm happy to have a special meeting to clarify things and make sure we're voting on what we know we're voting on.
Well, as the maker, I want to clarify that if the intent with the resolution was the latest and greatest that had been promulgated by staff and shared at the Zoom meeting on the screen.
I don't really want to do this with a lot of drama around it, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, we put the packet out, I get people, you know, the questions come at the meeting, and that's fine. But this is kind of a big deal. And so if it's going to be that, you know, staff's going to make all these decisions, which all sounds well and fine, but isn't generally how things work very well here. So I guess I would just prefer as much clarity as possible, because I don't want this to be stressful for staff and myself with, okay, who thinks, you know, who's going to get this and who's going to get that. So, I mean, if we can take another couple of days, you know, this only came up 2 weeks ago. We have an unbelievable amount of stuff on our plates. So I don't know. It's just hard. I mean, I get the whole trust staff thing, but that can be very challenging for staff. So
I think Dan had his hand up, Sean.
Paul has his hand up too. I don't know who else does.
Dan's first.
Excuse me?
Dan, I just put mine up, but Dan has been trying to get his up.
All right, well, I didn't see his hand on the thing, sorry.
Okay, yeah, that's okay. He can
I
go.
have all the pictures in front of me. I've got the agenda. Anyway, Dan Schlaff, go ahead. If somebody could unmute him, please.
I think it's a great idea. I just think there's a lot of unanswered questions for myself and for Courtney as far as staffing. Do we have enough barricades? What areas are we looking at? That would be nice to have something visual or in writing to know how many different barricades and what we need, because we don't have a lot of barricades. We do have some concrete big barriers. And also, I mean, we're down to 3 DPW guys too. I mean, we're trying to fill that position. So for me, and I believe Courtney with me on this, a little bit more clarity on what we're looking at, and whether that $5,000 is going to cover it, if our staff are going to be able to do it with 3 people, and trying to get the needs met by the city currently, or we're going to have to hire this out. I don't know if $5,000 will cover it. Thank you.
Then maybe there is a way to rent them so that we don't have to buy them and have them forever if we don't need them again too. But maybe if every other community is doing this, that's not going to be possible.
Donna, do you have your hand up?
Yeah,
Then I'll go to Paul. Then Paul has his up, I can see.
I'm listening to staff, and staff is asking us to give them more time, and we always say, well, we trust our staff, so that's where I am. I'm trusting staff. I will come to a meeting tomorrow night, the next night, whenever anybody calls, that the information's been gathered, and there's a special meeting. I'll make every effort to be present, to make quorum. So that's where I stand tonight.
Okay, Paul Cousins, you're next, please.
I move the previous question, which I believe means that we don't have any further discussion and we vote on it. By
There's no
Robert's rules.
motion.
Okay, so the previous motion was for what was in the packet?
Yes.
Well,
But Scott
The
withdrew
motion
his
made by
support.
Zach and
that
seconded.
motion was for what was presented in the email.
Correct.
And then we still have an active motion to postpone.
No, the second got withdrawn on that.
Did the maker withdraw?
No.
Doesn't have to.
But there's no second.
The one that seconded withdrew the second. So there's no second on it.
So we don't have an active postponement motion, I don't think. Okay, so the motion on the table then by Zach is for the material that was presented. I believe he's clarified whatever was emailed out by Michelle.
Right.
That's been on the screen here. Ms. Fisher, you have your hand up?
Oh, it's from before.
Okay.
But I can't read the print on what Justin has up. I can't read that.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Oh, you can't read? Okay.
I know I can't read what the ordinance that we're passing is, because I didn't receive it, and I can't read this fine print. Sorry, but I just can't.
Okay. Michelle, hold on. Let me, Jim Smith, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I would like to, again, move to postpone consideration of this until a special meeting on next Monday. That'd be the 15th.
Mr. President, I do not think that's a legal motion under my motion under Robert's rules. You have to vote on my motion.
Paul, that's fine. I'm trying to get to it without people putting their hands up and understand what I'm voting on. Because what I heard Zach say was that he said on page 188 in the packet was what I wrote down.
That was the resolution.
Okay, so that was what he had put forward. Okay, and then we got into this second thing that Michelle passed out, and I'm trying. So the motion that's on the table that you're asking me to vote on is what's in the packet, without the clarity of what staff provided.
No, the resolution itself is on page 188. It doesn't reference specifically this resolution that's in the packet, at least not that I'm seeing. It just says, now therefore be it resolved that the city of Dexter, by adoption of this resolution, adopts an emergency ordinance to mitigate impacts of the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic. And because we have most recent information that has been promulgated both by email and at this meeting, is that that's the version of the emergency ordinance.
Okay. Fair enough. Carol, please call the vote to approve that resolution.
Okay. Knight,
Yes.
Fisher,
No.
Smith,
No.
Cousins,
Yes.
Bell,
No.
Michelle,
Yes.
Keo.
No. Motion failed.
Would have needed 5 to 2.
Is there a motion to postpone to give staff an idea or is there a motion to do something so that we know next week we can bring this back with some of the answers and more clarity? So we can keep this going, please?
Jim
Jim
Smith
Smith has his hand up. Sorry, Jim.
If staff feels they can do that in a week,
Yes.
I'm willing to postpone till the 15th special meeting. Otherwise, to the 22nd.
All right, moved by Smith. Is there support?
I'll support that if it's by the 15th, unless staff says they can't get it together for then.
No, we'll get it together for
I
that.
saw Michelle nodding, so I
Yes.
prefer not to wait 2 weeks, 1 week.
Okay, but you support Jim's motion, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we have motion by Smith, second by Fisher, to bring this back at a special meeting next Monday, the 15th. I'll presume that that's a 6 p.m. meeting, but we'll clarify before then.
Okay.
Discussion on the motion?
Are folks who want it postponed going to enumerate the things that they need staff to provide us?
I'd like to know what we can get for 5,000 that helps make this work is my biggest question, Zach. And then I would like it if you could run the liability of whatever past our risk management folks, if we haven't done that already. Those are my two primary things. I'm all for getting this in place. I mean, and I guess that goes to whether or not we need to rent or purchase or own, or, can we even lift one? Do we have a piece of equipment that would lift it? All of that sort of thing. Do they have to be ADA compliant?
Barriers?
Not the barriers, no, the areas that we're calling these outdoor seating things. Do they have to be ADA compliant?
I suspect that the answer to that is yes, based on the information that I have seen. Excuse me. But I will verify it.
Okay, that would be the third question for me, Michelle, then. I'm not seeing any other hands on anything else that needs to be clarified, so I guess those are the three things. Okay, Ms. Knight, please call the roll to have a special meeting on the 15th or when staff has it ready, but ideally the 15th.
You mean Mrs. Jones?
All right, Carol, yes. Carol?
Yeah, I thought I heard Miss Knight and when you said that. Okay. Okay. Bell?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Knight?
No.
Cousins?
No.
Smith?
Yes.
Fisher?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
Okay. Keo?
Yes. Okay.
We have a
Okay.
workshop before the special meeting too?
Okay, new business item L4. Let me get my agenda back in front here. New business item L4 is discussion of the possibility of submitting a facility ballot proposal for the November 2020 election. Mr. Smith requested this be on the agenda tonight, so I'll turn it over to Jim.
Yes, after postponing it from the August election, I started thinking a little more about it because I didn't give a lot of consideration to the possibility of doing a November one. And so I thought, maybe I rushed my decision on not supporting doing November. So I started taking a look at the timeline for the fire station project. If we had a November election versus having a May 2021 election. And when I looked at the timeline and saw that applying the same timeline that would have been in place for if we had the election in May 2020, it would end up meaning that the fire station would not be completed until 2023. And I looked at that and I said, if the election is held in November or the election's held in May, if it passes, the taxes are going to be assessed beginning in 2021. So I looked at and I just looked at the difference of, basically a whole year, almost, as far as the timeline where, the station could be completed and operational. So I thought it was worth coming back and having a discussion about it, see where people are. I think it's, worth considering. And I agree with the comment Sean made earlier that, if we do look at November, then we need to have some more serious discussions about city offices and see where we're going with that. So I felt it was important to at least take a second look at the possibility of a November 2020 election.
So Jim, thanks for bringing it forward. I think that, I think that we have until, what would the date be? I guess August 11th to make the decision.
Yes.
And as I stated previously on this, that resolution included money or potential dollars for 2 facilities, and we have not yet defined the second one. So if we're going to do that in November, I would appreciate it if there was clarity on the second part of that. Now, all that being said, I don't know if the month of July and maybe the first meeting in August brings us to that clarity or not. But, if the businesses are hurting as much as we just talked about, many of them are going to have to bear a large portion of this $3 million increase over 20 years or whatever it is. And, I think it was Scott that said he wasn't sure what the impact has been on each business, but I think we know that nobody has fostered through this time very well. Okay. And if you're retail or commercial or in the manufacturing sector or any type of area of our economy where you had to be together. And I mean, November is not that far away. So I know we're not voting on this tonight, but I really think we should stick with the plan and do this in 2021. I'll let others talk. I just want to share my thoughts. Zach, you have your hand up. Thank you.
Yep, as anyone might remember, thought it best for this to be resolved in November, both for timeline and because it's going to be lots of people voting. What I would like to know, though, is how we would be able to reconsider this question, because this body has voted not to discuss it again, or not to put it on the ballot until next year. So it's a very nitpicky thing, but Robert's Rules of Order say once you've decided And our council rules say once you've decided, that's kind of it, unless you reconsider, and that has to be done at the meeting or the next meeting by the person, someone who voted on the side that carried. I don't believe either that happened. It would be potential for us to suspend the rules. That requires a pretty high vote. I don't think that we're going to get that now. So that would mean either splitting the two questions, if we want to bring it there as it is, this for fire station, this for city hall, or just doing fire station. So if someone could answer to me, I guess, how we would put it on there exactly as it was, because I can't see that path.
Well, Zach, I'll tell you, I'll be happy to look at the Roberts rules a little closer to see if I can help you figure out what that path would be. But I don't have Roberts rules in front of me, and I wasn't going to try and do it at the meeting. I've always been of the opinion, and I think some of the council members that have been on the council a long time with me, we've heard that one council can't bind another, so to speak, or I'm not sure, Zach, that in this case, if we changed our mind, we couldn't do that by a simple vote to bring it forward faster, but I'll look into it. I mean, as much as I think it should stay in 2021, in fairness to the question, I'll be happy to look into that.
John?
Yeah, Jim, go ahead. Sorry, please.
I had actually consulted with our clerk before our last meeting because I had considered the possibility of requesting a reconsideration of the motion to postpone until 2021. And at that time, I looked at different possibilities, and I was given the information that typically, as this was a resolution, that a subsequent resolution could be approved that would just supersede the previous resolution. And that's what I would foresee taking place in the future if we decide to go forward with this, would be passing a new resolution that would supersede the one that had previously passed.
And I think that can be evaluated. Jim, that's what I think can happen, frankly, too. I'm not pulling out the book tonight to figure that out. If that's part of the question, we can figure that out.
I personally would vote against that because it's not consistent with the spirit.
Okay, well, maybe we can talk offline about that, Zach. I want to know more about your concern there and understand it fully. Please.
Paul is here, his hand up.
Sorry, Paul, go ahead.
Well, so I understand that, and I used it one time back years ago. Donna will remember. We had a member of the council that changed his vote at the next meeting, and I did a lot of research on that. Since we had to bring it up at that next meeting, but the answer to the question is that if it's a different motion, that does not violate the process. So if we decided that we were going to have a motion on just the fire hall, that could be done. A motion on just the city offices, that could be done. Or to split them and have two ballot issues, one for fire hall and one for city hall on the November election. That doesn't, in my opinion, from what I understood before when I worked with that process, violate Robert's rules or the issues of of law. So I think it can be brought back in at a subsequent time in November or in February or in May or whatever time we want to, okay? We already voted in for May, I believe. But it can be brought back in November or in February.
There is no February. It's just November or May. They got rid of the February.
Oh, they got rid of the, okay, well.
Yeah,
then
that's
November-
just presidential primary now.
Okay,
So it's
thank
either
you.
November or May. Just
Thank you, Courtney, for clarifying. So anyway, the point I'm making is that I think that it can be done. I will agree with Zach that the greatest number of people that can make this decision should be a primary goal of all of us. And that's in this November election. And I think that's something that you have to examine closely yourselves. Is that an issue that you have as well? That we should have the greatest amount of turnout that we can. And with the indication I have on absentee ballots and people applying for them, it's going to be a record number of votes. People are going to vote because they can, and it's going to be easier for them to do that. COVID-19 or not. If it's still a pandemic at that time and people wouldn't feel safe, that's not the issue. It's the point that they have an opportunity, and many states have this already before the COVID-19 pandemic. So for those issues there, I think we could make the decision. The question is, what do we want to do? And I'm willing to have that further discussion. But at this point in time, I would agree that we should revisit it and get the opportunity to have what our decision should be on a November ballot, whether it's one, whether it's two, or whether it's separate things in the future.
Thank you, Paul. Are there other council members that would like to discuss at this point? Okay. Seeing none, thank you, Jim, for bringing that back in front of us.
Sure.
New business item L5 was added tonight as consideration of the Dexter Days permit application that was submitted in two parts originally about a month ago, if you will, plus the additional information that was in the packet. So I'd like to have a motion. If somebody could make a motion, please. Jim Smith has his hand up.
Somebody has to. I make a motion that we do not approve the Dexter Days application in its current condition.
All right, motion by Smith. Is there a second?
Second it.
Scott Bell, second. Thank you. Is there discussion by council?
Sean, let me just add to that.
Okay, Jim, I didn't know if you just hadn't taken your hand down. Please go ahead.
You know, I should say the current condition of with the pandemic.
Okay, but you're saying
Not the conditions of the application, but
yes, understood. You want the motion to reflect that you're recommending not to have Dexter Days due to the current condition involving the pandemic.
yes, thank you.
Scott, is that okay as I phrase it?
I just want to clarify, is this in reference to the applied for dates of August 14th to 15th? Or is this overall, Jim? Regardless of date? Because they're applying to do it in August.
Yeah. I would say that it would need to apply to both, because I think if we get the decision to that we don't feel it should be held, I don't think a month difference is going to really improve things that much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other council members' comments? Okay, we talked about it all before everybody spoke. Ms. Jones, please call the vote.
Yes. Fisher,
Yes.
Smith,
Well, wait a minute. I don't think I understand.
A yes vote means that we are denying the application.
Thank you. I did understand them. Yes, thank you.
so you're still a yes, Donna?
I am, Carol. I just got mixed up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Smith,
Yes.
Cousins,
Yes.
Knight,
No.
Michelle,
No.
Bell,
Yes.
Keo.
Yes. All right, as sad as that makes me, the motion carries to not have Dexter Days 5-2. That was a tough one. Council comments this evening. I'm just going to go from the top of my list. Ms. Fisher? Might have lost Donna. I'll come back to Donna. Zach?
I have nothing.
Julie?
I have nothing, thank you.
Donna, I see you're back. Donna?
I am, yeah, I'm wondering if Paul would consent to having us take that one sheet of paper off of our agenda every time. I feel like I've read it enough and I understand his point, so I would like to suggest we take that out. The council rule sheet that keeps appearing.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope, that's all, thanks.
Okay. Jim Smith, please.
Nothing.
Paul Cousins?
Nothing tonight. I'm going to stay safe and healthy.
You as well. And then last but not least, Scott Bell.
No, nothing tonight.
Okay, everyone, we're down to non-arranged participation. Is there anybody that has their hands up? Justin or anybody?
Not seeing any right now.
Okay, I will seek a motion for adjournment then, please.
Do you want me to unmute folks though first?
Yeah, why don't you just check to unmute everybody, make sure we got it covered. Please.
All right, I've asked to unmute everyone who is muted.
You'll have to let me know when you think they've all responded or not.
Not seeing anybody talking or
Okay,
any hands going up.
all right. So we have Jim Smith, there's your hand still up?
No, I was going for the adjournment.
Okay, I'll seek a motion for adjournment then, please.
So moved.
Moved by Smith. Oh, wait a minute, Chris Jones just put his hand up. He's not unmuted, Justin.
I've hit ask to unmute on Chris. He has to approve being unmuted.
I'm
Okay,
not sure if this is going to work, if you guys can actually hear me. This is
we can, Chris. We can hear you just fine.
I'm having a horrible internet connection, so I doubt you guys can even hear me, but this is Chris Jones. All right, 3223 Boulder Court, Dexter. And I just want to add a little bit about the downtown businesses. The struggle's real, guys. It has been a really, really hard time for most businesses. A lot of businesses are seeing zero revenue. They're completely closed. And the restaurants, I don't think anybody's doing above 50% of the numbers that we normally see at this time. Any assistance that you guys can offer would be greatly appreciated. I know I'm extremely appreciative of what you guys have done for us already. And and you guys have gone above and beyond already. But I do want to stress that, it is a real struggle for a lot of businesses. And I think that over the course of the next couple months, unfortunately, we're going to be losing some more. So I think having a vibrant downtown and having a vibrant business community is important to Dexter. And some of these small things like expanding the downtown seating would be really helpful. One other thing to add is I've seen this done before in other communities. And rather than pushing the seating out into the street, what they've done is expanded the pedestrian traffic to move out into the built out areas into the street and move the seating closer to the business themselves. I'm not sure, like I said, my internet connection is really bad, so I missed a good portion of what you guys were talking about. But that is something that I would like to throw out there as well, is that that's one option you guys can consider. That's about all I got to add.
Thanks, Chris. If you can hear us, we heard you. Thank you. Okay, Justin, do you see anybody else?
Thank you.
I do not.
Okay, I believe Jim Smith was about to make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, so moved.
Is there support?
Support.
Or all those in favor, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Everybody have a good night and a good week. We'll talk in a week.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Night.